Sharyl Attkisson spent 20 years at CBS News going on bombing missions, covering 9/11, winning Emmys and all kinds of other awards. But the network increasingly refused to air her investigative reports, especially on Obama administration scandals. And then she found her office and home computers the target of sophisticated hackers. Her book is called Stonewalled: My Fight for Truth Against the Forces of Obstruction, Intimidation, and Harassment in Obama's Washington. And she joins me now here in Studio One. Welcome.
Thank you.
So CBS initially aired your stories on Fast and Furious, on Benghazi, and then the appetite dried up. Why do you think that was?
It's hard to know what conversations and decisions are made at the higher level, but yes, I didn't seek out Benghazi. I wasn't covering that story initially. Neither was I covering healthcare.gov. Those were assigned to me by CBS. And initially they were very receptive. They really wanted me to go after whatever I could find out, factual, good information. And then, as I describe in the book, at some point it seems the light switch goes off when you're getting a lot of pushback from the White House and a lot of the surrogate media kind of jumps in and starts to criticize.
Could it be, and I've been there as an investigative reporter, that you got really wrapped up with these stories and executives felt the audience was tired of them?
I suppose that would be one way to look at it, but I was constantly told that when I would post the stories, if they wouldn't make a broadcast and I posted them on the web, that they were wildly popular. And I think we were serving viewers that were looking for that sort of reporting. And I can't coincide a loss of viewer interest with their lack of interest in wanting to run the stories. That happened rather suddenly, while I still sensed a great deal of viewer interest in the stories.
You're very explicit in saying that when Scott Pelley became the anchor, he would initially praise some of your stories, and then?
Well, they would never run. You know, it was a very difficult phenomenon to get a hold of, because the first story I offered them, which had nothing to do with political figures or politics, I thought a great investigation approved by the legal department and the producer I'd worked on it with. We thought it was a terrific piece.
Then you would go through this rewriting process?
Right. I mean, in the beginning, so there was, I call it death by 1,000 cuts, a lot of rewriting and softening and changing. And this story did go after some important powers that be. So you're left to wonder why, in the end, it was rescheduled and then never aired. I don't know why. I can only tell you that that's what happened.
And you say that some other veteran reporters began to ask not to appear on the CBS Evening News.
Yes, so, you know, there was pretty well-known disagreement with this new era when Scott Pelley came in as managing editor and his executive producer. There was a lot of discontent and sort of a consensus of a variety of different problems, not just the idea of ideological bias, which has been reported a lot in the press, but there are a lot of issues going on. And yes, at least 2 reporters that I know of actually tried to negotiate contracts where they wouldn't have to appear on the evening news because it was so disruptive and disconcerting to try to deal with their script ideas and what they were doing with the stories.
Let's talk about what happened with 60 Minutes. Steve Kroft had an interview which happened to be the day after the Benghazi attacks with President Obama. And that soundbite, or some of that interview, ended up not being used. And then after the second 2012 debate, became a big issue whether or not the president had or had not referred to the Benghazi attacks as a terrorist attack. Let's take a quick look at the soundbite that didn't initially make air.
Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about, what group was involved, but obviously it was an attack on Americans.
What did you do when you found out about that exchange after the debate and everybody in America, in journalism at least, was debating what the president had or hadn't said?
Let me say that exchange, I believe, should have been pulled out immediately after the debate, which would have been very newsy at the time. It was exclusive to CBS and would have, it appears to me, proven Romney's point against Obama. But that clip was kept secret. I was covering Benghazi and nobody told me that we had it. In fact, directed me, the Evening News, to use a different clip from the same interview to give the misimpression that the president had done the opposite. And it was only right before the election that somebody kind of leaked out the transcript to others of us at CBS, and we were really shocked. I mean, we felt that there had been something very unethical done to have kept that covered up.
You say that top people at the network were misleading the public. Were they, in this instance and perhaps others, protecting President Obama?
The Evening News people who had access to that transcript, according to the emails I saw when it was sent from 60 Minutes to Evening News the very day that it was taken, they, in my view, skipped over it, passed it up, kept it secret throughout the whole time when it would have been relevant to the news. And I think that was because they were trying to defend the president. They thought that would be harmful to him.
Now, since you've written this book and it's gotten a lot of publicity, there has been an effort, including some of your ex-colleagues, including certain elements in the media, to paint you as some kind of right-winger who is ideologically opposed to the Obama administration, and that's what's motivating you. Your thoughts?
I think if you look at the factual record rather than the propaganda being put out, you see a very even divide of stories, many non-political, and many that have been going after Republican targets, I guess people would say, including several that won National Emmy Awards that went after Republicans or looked at issues under the Bush administration. So I'll just say briefly, if anybody actually looks at the factual record rather than reading second and third-hand information, it belies that sort of narrative.
Given that you've done this in different kinds of administrations, on different kinds of stories, and for a two-decade career, award-winning career at CBS, does this tick you off?
It doesn't make me happy. It's not pleasant, but it's expected and discussed in the book. In fact, the kind of reaction that the usual suspects are giving and the narrative that they're putting out is well foretold. You can go to page 343 on the book, and I start a discussion of what would come when I would say these things publicly and how it would be narrated, what the narrative would be.
So you expected some of this backlash, and indeed it has come.